George, you've known many people know you. Let me ask you about a few people that you got to know and are very friendly with. How did you strike up a relationship with John Thompson?
John Thompson and I grew up in the same section of Washington, D.C., and we knew each other since high school. John played on perhaps one of the three best high school teams in the history of the United States at John Carroll High School. All of the players on that team went on to be All-Americans. The fifth starter ended up being the president of Georgetown University, and so basketball was what brought Coach Thompson and I together. And I was ahead of John in school, and so I graduated. I'm at Villanova, and so they're now trying to recruit John to come to Villanova. So when he came up for his visit, I was his host and the recruiting and tried to sell him on coming to school there. And we stayed close friends from then on. Of course, John went off to Providence, played with the Boston Celtics, came back to D.C. and had a couple different jobs, and ultimately I'm now an assistant at Maryland, and John is coaching at St. Anthony's High School in Washington, D.C., and he had a powerhouse team.
Right.
And so the Georgetown basketball job opens, and I apply for it. John Thompson applies for it, and the great DeMatha High School coach Morgan Wooten applied for it. And there were a variety of other people, but we ended up being the three finalists for the job. And I went in and I interviewed for the job, and honestly, I thought I had the job based on the fact that the chairman of the selection committee called me at home that night and just said, "Hey, you were tremendous. You exceeded anything that we expected, and you'll be getting a call soon." Well, I got a call soon, but it was to say I didn't get the job. So they selected John as the coach, and so lo and behold, if a month or so later, I don't end up getting a Washington State job as the head coach. And so it goes back to something that Lefty used to always tell us, things have a way of working out for the best in life and that. And so John got what he wanted, and while I wanted the Georgetown game, I still got an opportunity to be a head coach. And so our friendship started to grow and grow and grow over the years that we were in coaching. And John was always immensely loyal to me, and I've always been the same to him. So then we get to 1988, and now he's the head coach of the U.S. Olympic basketball team, and he chose me as one of his assistants, and so that's the origin and probably the one of the real pinnacle rewards of our relationship was an opportunity to be assistant coach on the '88 Olympic team.
Well, I know people say, I think, how close are George and John Thompson? I said, well, I can tell you this: when George got into his accident, and you were in bad shape, and we don't have to go, but you were in bad shape. John flew out, and he went to the hospital, and they said, "I'm sorry, only family can get in." He said, "I'm his brother." And he walked right. Nobody was going to stop John from getting in to see you.
I woke up and looked up, and there was John standing there in the room, and I was flabbergasted because I said, "How did you get in?" He said, "I walked in." There's only one John Thompson, and they threw away the mold. But I tell you this, I've never had a greater friend in life to John.
How about Michael?
Michael Jordan was a result of the '84 Olympic team, and that relationship. Same thing with Bob Knight. We can talk about. So with Michael was on the '84 Olympic team. I was assistant coach in the '84 Olympic team, and I'm not sure how. If one of them were here, they probably could put the piece together. But after we selected a team, and for some reason, Vern Fleming, who then was
Georgia.
Georgia, and made the U.S. Olympic team. Patrick Ewing and Michael and myself, we were inseparable. We ate together. We went to the malls together. We hung out, went to movies. Whatever we did, it was a foursome, and we just became a unit. And the more time we spent, the stronger friends that we became. Now, of those three guys, the one that I don't see very often at all is Vern Fleming, but Michael and Patrick I see a lot. So the friendship continued to grow. There were things that took place during the Olympic Games that bonded Michael and I closer together, and then of course. Sonny Vaccaro, who was then working for Nike, and I were friends, and so Sonny asked me to help recruit Michael for Nike, and so subsequently Michael ended up going to Nike, and we continued our bond of friendship, and now Michael's in the NBA, and is in his early tenure, and he comes down to LA for a game, and no, I know what he does. He comes down to make that movie Space Jam, and so he invites myself and my wife and my son Mark out to dinner. And I'll never forget this. We ate at the Palms up in Beverly Hills or West Hollywood. And at dinner, he said to me, he said, "Coach," he said, "I'd like to run a kids basketball camp on the West Coast. Would you be interested?" And I said, "Yes." I said, "But on one condition." He said, "What?" I said, "Are you going to be there every day?" He said, "Oh, yeah, I'm going to be there. I'm not ripping kids off. I'll be there." And so here we are getting ready to go into the 20th year of running Michael's basketball camp. And we've had a...
And he's been there every day.
Yeah, right. And he's there every day. And so we have almost a blind loyalty for each other. And God knows he's made my life a lot more comfortable with just, if nothing else, than just a basketball camp. But forget the basketball camp. Michael and I have a trusting, authentic relationship, and I'm proud of it. And I've never abused the fact that Michael trusted me. Jack, never once in those years did Michael ever question anything that I did with the camp, financially, whatever. If I said, "Hey, Michael, here's how many kids there are, here's the money, and here's your we had an agreement on how the money was to be split. Here's your check for your money." We had blind trust. I would never do anything to violate his trust. And so over the years, we've been able to work together. People will come to me and say, "Hey, can you go to Michael with this?" But I never violated that sacred trust of being a friendship. And all the years that I've ever known Michael, Jack, I've never once ever asked him for a ticket or anything. I've never asked him for anything. Because to me, I thought that was a violation of our friendship. Not that he wouldn't do it,
Right.
but I just never would do it. I had too much respect for him as a person. I mean, I've seen people, and when I've been in this company, come up asking for money. I wouldn't even ask them for a ticket for a game.
Well, you know, I mean, most people don't understand the meaning of true friendship.
Mm.
And I think that's you're not asking him for something is because it's just outside the limits. You know, if you needed a ticket, you'd find one before you would ask him.
Right.
All right, one other, Phil Knight.
Phil Knight walked into my life at a peculiar time when I was still growing, still trying to answer the question, who am I and what am I all about? He's just in the early stages of developing Nike into a mega corporation of sports footwear and equipment. And I meet Phil through Sonny Vaccaro, who was working at Nike. And I was in the original group of 11 college coaches that Nike signed to the first endorsement contract. We met at Caesar's Palace in a meeting room, and Phil Knight and John Slusher Sr. were there. Mr. Slusher did most of the talking, but Phil reinforced things, and at the end of the day, they offered each of us an opportunity to become endorsees of Nike product, and all of us accepted, as I remember it. And there were two ways that you could be compensated. One was by stock, and one was by cash. And I'll never forget this. Bill Foster, who then was coaching at UNC Wilmington, leaned over to me, and him and I were very close friends. And he said, "George, take the stock. I'll explain to you later. Take the stock." And it was the best advice he ever gave me. What discouraged a lot of people in the room from taking the stock was you couldn't cash it for 5 years. But that turned out to be a great blessing, because then you even if it went sky high, you couldn't do anything with it. And so the people who took the money lost on the deal. The people who took the stock ended up with 10 times the cash amount. And so then I met Phil, and over the years our relationship continued to grow, and he actually became a role model for me. I really closely watched how he did things and learned from him, and watched how he built the company. And I'll share this one Phil Knight story because it was a life lesson for me. When Tiger Woods got into the controversy in his marriage there and as you know, all the corporate sponsorships he had, everybody jumped ship except Nike. Nike stayed with them. The media's running around, "Are you guys going to keep him?" "Yes, we are going to keep him," was Nike's response. And Nike was catching a lot of heat for doing it. But so I run into Phil Knight one day on campus months afterwards, and I said to him, I said, "Hey, Phil, I really have immense respect for you, but I have even more now." I said, "You're truly my hero." And he thought I was had a couple beers or something, you know. So he said, "Why?" And I said, "For the way you dealt with Tiger Woods, you know." I said, "You know what? I know you're taking a lot of heat for that." I said, "I really respect you for what you've done to stand your grounds and protect your principles." And so he said something to me, Jack, that I never will forget for the rest of my life. He said, "Coach," he said, "the true test of a relationship is how you deal with the relationship during the time of crisis. Anybody can make the relationship work during the good times. The real test is how do you deal with the relationship during the time of crisis." And this is a time of crisis, and I believe that if we thought he was good enough to sign in the beginning, that we should stick with him now. And so now we fast forward. He's gone through this, and he looks like he's going to recapture his dominant position in golfing. And one of the things I also learned over the years, Jack, is one thing I know about American people is two things. One, they're forgetful, and two, they're forgiving.